Hi, morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. Um, Welcome back to this class after 2 weeks. Um, yeah, we had some issues, logistic and stuff like that, but we are back. Let's set our intentions by saying the intentions and aspirations by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Yeah, let's do a good, solid session of meditation. Um, I'm going to ask a question. Is anybody new to this and has not done this with us before? If so, go to the chat function, click on it, and write a chat. I'm going to read a couple of things. Maybe I'll do that first to give you time to write if you want. Okay, we have a couple of new people. I'm going to read this. This is from a teacher named Tinley Norbu Rinpoche, and that is spelled Tinley. It's written thinly, but it's pronounced Tinley, I think. Norbu, Norbu, Rinpoche, Rinpoche. He has a number of good books. He's no longer with us. His father was Dujam Rinpoche, who's known to be one of the major Tibetan Buddhist lamas of the 20th century, as is Tinley Norbu Rinpoche. And Tinley Norbu Rinpoche's son is Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, who we've talked about a bit in this class, and I encourage you all to. Siddhartha's intent is Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's website, organization. They have a website, and he's been doing a lot of teachings lately, and he's wonderful. I'll just read this. Tinley Norbu Rinpoche has a lot of good books. If we believe that mind is continuous, our love for others becomes continuous. If we recognize this continuity, we do not trust temporary tangible circumstances or take them too seriously, since it is tiring to switch between changing uncertainties which are inherently impermanent. We become less easily influenced by any circumstance. This creates the habit of stability, so that our minds are less erratic, our lives are less chaotic, and our feelings for others are less changeable, which causes love to become increasingly deep and loyal. That mention of continuity, I think, is really important. I think there's another thing I wanted to read. In this class, for those of you who knew, really we work on meditation, but we also focus a lot on working with the mind. Because when you think about it, right, pretty much everything you do is filtered through the mind. The mind is like, sometimes we say, like the operating system of, your personhood, our perceptions, everything we learn, our relationships, how we perceive others, how we perceive the world, how we take in sensory input, how we interpret sensory input. It's all comes through the mind. Now, it's not saying that everything's in your mind, like that things don't exist. Well, they do exist, but they often, well, not often, but they exist in probably ways that we don't always get the complete picture of how things exist. So everything's colored by the mind. So if the mind, it's like these sunglasses have a kind of yellowish amber lens. So when I wear them, right, everything I see is colored by amber. In the same way, how you look at the world is going to be colored by what's in your mind, what your mind has become conditioned to, habituated to, for better and for worse. So what we're doing in this class, in meditation, and in whatever Buddha Dharma discussion we have, is about the mind. Most of you have heard this, those of you who've been here for a while. You know, when we decided to move this class from just a secular meditation class into meditation with some discussion and talk, questions about basic Buddhism, you know, I asked my teacher, Garchen Rinpoche, if this was okay, because a lot of you had questions about Buddhism, were curious about it, and he said, yeah, just keep the focus on the mind, because Buddha is not the name of a man, it's the name of mind, which is a very big statement and a very vast topic that we go into every now and again. But that's what we're doing here. We're working with our mind. The more we become familiar with how our mind works, the more we're able to get a perspective on what's actually happening rather than be led around by habituated feelings, attitudes, perceptions, ideas about other people and about the world and about ourselves. We can bring some spaciousness to how our mind perceives these things rather than just knee-jerk reactions that are based on sometimes very, very old wiring, if that makes sense. And these things take time. Meditation practice, anybody who's practiced a sport, musical instrument, any kind of discipline like that, knows that no success or improvement or even aptitude or ability comes without practice, and lots of it. But if you think about something like the mind, as we say, it's the mind that is, it's like the cockpit of our existence in a way, it's even more than that. If that is the case, then it's certainly a good idea to practice working with it. I thought there was another quote I wanted to read you. But if it's not the case, we'll just go into practice here. Since there's a few beginners, I'm going to take you through a short review. In this class, you sit on the floor with a cushion, cross-legged, you can do, like folded like this. If you're flexible and do a half lotus or full lotus. Cushion helps to get your hips aligned or higher than your knees, which makes things a little more comfortable. If your body is, under certain circumstances and you can't do this on the floor, you can sit in a chair. If you do sit in a chair, make sure your back is straight and your hips aligned or higher than your knees. You don't want your knees to be higher in this kind of leaning back position. That's not. You really want to get the core, the torso, and the spine straight. Not rigid, not at attention, but just relaxed and erect and up. That's really important. because in this class we also work with subtle body channels, of which in the Tibetan Buddhist system we talk about these 3 subtle energetic channels, which we're going to work on right now. So if you're sitting in this posture, your shoulders are back, not rigid, but just relaxed, but you're not kind of caving in, right? Your chin is slightly tucked, not all the way down, but just slightly. Your mouth is closed, but your teeth can be a little apart. The tongue usually rests right at the roof of the mouth. Those of you who've done this a million times, it's still good to remember these fundamentals and work on them. And for the hands, we usually do palm at the back of the hand kind of curved in the lap. You could do this. Some people do this with the ring finger. You can just do this. We meditate in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition mostly with our eyes open. But it's not staring intensely, and it's not spacing out. It's resting your gaze on whatever is in front of you. We're going to try to breathe through our nose. If you can't, use your mouth. So imagine 3 channels, like as big maybe as your finger. The central channel is blue, and it runs next to the spinal column. And think of from around your navel area, just below your navel, going up alongside the spine, the back of the head, to the crown. You have the right, which is white in men traditionally and red in women. The right side is white in men traditionally and red in women. So man would have white in the right, red on the left, and vice versa for women, but you decide how you want to define yourself and your configuration. So this nostril, the right nostril in my case, would be white, and you imagine it going up and around the head, down the back, and joining that blue central right below the navel. The 3 channels join right below the navel. The red, in my case, would go from here all the way back and join right below the navel. We're going to take our thumb and press it to the base of the ring finger, and then make a fist with these 3 fingers. And with the index finger, right hand will go to the left side, and we're going to, to the left side. And we're going to breathe into this right nostril, into the right channel. So, imagine it going up, and then down the back, all the way, and hold it at the navel, and then switch and breathe it out. Once again. Three times. The white channel corresponds to anger as a negative emotion, and patience on the other side, and things similar to patience, kindness, and love, loving kindness, compassion, those things. The red channel is associated with negative emotion of attachment, which could be greed and lust, and like a negative form of lust that's obsessive or compulsive or things like that. And the virtuous, purified nature of it would be like generosity and contentment, spaciousness. So we're going to switch hands. We're going to tuck our thumb to the base of the ring finger, close, take the left, and go to the right side. Into the red channel, in my case, women it would be opposite. Switch and breathe out. So you're breathing out that anger or that attachment. You're breathing in that patience, generosity, compassion, spaciousness, openness. Now we're going to move to the central channel. We're going to use both nostrils to breathe in to that blue channel. The blue channel is associated with wisdom and ignorance. And by ignorance, I don't mean stupidity. Ignorance means really not seeing the truth, not knowing the truth. And what Dharma does is awaken us to the truth, to the truth in the Buddhist view, which we talk about impermanence, interdependence, dependent arising, that everything that arises is dependent on everything else, basically, that we don't exist in a vacuum, that our true nature of reality is interdependence, interconnectedness, impermanence, non-duality. That's the truth. And when we don't, and not knowing that causes us to suffer because we start dualistic thinking, separation, self and other, and all those things that come into play. That's a very big topic as well. We had a class about emptiness with Vesna Wallace, Shunyata, this whole concept that's on our archives. That's very good. She explains it far, 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 far better than I ever could. So we're going to breathe into that blue channel. Hold it at the navel and breathe out. Now on the third breath, we're going to imagine breathing out and the breath coming out of our crown chakra. Chakra is where these energy points kind of connect. It really means wheel. And merging your breath, your consciousness with space, almost. And then we'll go right into meditation. And I'll talk through some of it for those who are new on this last breath. First, just relax. Keep the posture and the position, but just relax. Breathe normally, unless you need, a shot of oxygen. Take a deep breath, but breathe just pretty normal breath. Easy breath, not short, not shallow, not fast, not slow. Easy. Be aware of your breath. By that I mean your attention, where this breath is going in and out. Put your attention there. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel tight, if you feel tension, you can shift. You don't have to be locked and not move, Shift and then settle back in, relax back in, you know what I mean? Calm. Breathe. Just focus on that breath. Imagine that you're airing out your mind, ventilating your mind, a mind that can sometimes get so tight, so crammed and possessed with anxiety and worry and fear and anger, obsession, repetitive thoughts, worry. Breathe in, breathe in air, and just imagine that air making space in the mind. Opening, just like opening the space. So you're going from this tight little room to imagine just this vast space, almost a vast sky. Sky is one of the images we use in this class. Breathe. Imagine your mind as a limitless, infinitely vast, crystal clear sky. Not a blemish, not a cloud, not a dot. And rest in that. Take a breath in and rest in that space. For now, just rest in that. Natural great peace, the Buddhist teachers call it. It's there, right? We didn't really do much. But we can take a breath and actually touch that natural great peace. Don't worry, all your issues and problems will be there when we're done, you know. Hopefully we'll be, week by week we'll find ways of dealing with those things. But for right now, create that space. Inhabit it. Relax in it. It's real. It's real, and it is the true nature of your mind, that infinite vastness, that calm. I mean, when you think of that infinitely vast, stainless blue sky, the clarity and calm, that's the true nature of the mind. That has always been there, always will be there. You can't alter it, you can't change it. No matter how many thoughts come and go, how many panics come and go, how many anxieties come and go, furies and rages will come and go. Never can touch that, never can stain that mind. If we have the technique and tools, we can always access that clarity, that natural great peace. Breathe. You're going to be thinking, you're going to have thoughts, and one of the misconceptions of meditation that it's about not thinking. That's not true. It's about working with the thoughts. If the mind is this clear sky, the thought is like a cloud that arises from the sky and dissolves back into it. The key to this practice is becoming aware of the fact that you're thinking. Really becoming aware of what the mind is doing. So we're in our posture. We're focusing on the breath. The breath is the anchor, really, of this. We're relaxing into this sky-like nature of mind, this natural great peace. And I'm thinking about where I'm going at 5:30. And that's okay. The mind thinks. That's what it does. I'm just going to become aware of that fact that I'm thinking. And almost relate to it like the cloud that has arisen, and all I'm going to do is become aware of it and imagine it dissipating back into the sky like a cloud going back into the sky. Back into the mind, just like a cloud going back into the sky. The key is not to follow the thought, get into the story of it. I got to be somewhere at 5:30. Who am I meeting? Where am I going? What am I going to do there? That's the story. All I'm doing is, okay, boom, there's that thought. I got to go somewhere. Leaving it where it is. Not pushing it away. Bad thought, bad mind, bad guy. Leaving it where it is. Remember, like I said, we're aerating. We're ventilating our mind. We're making space. Because it is space. It's limitless. When you get lost in thought and become aware that you've been thinking, and that might go on for quite a while before you notice it, you can also just go and say to yourself, back to the breath. Focus on that breath again, that space between the nose and the upper lip. You made a decision today to work with your mind. You made a decision today to touch the natural great peace that is the nature of your mind, that is your true nature, really. In Buddhist terms, in Buddhist perspective, we all have Buddha nature. The nature of our mind is Buddha, awakened, aware, purified, unstained, limitless, clear, calm, peaceful. Back to the breath. You can smile if it feels good, you know. And take a deep breath if you need some air, some extra oxygen. Those of you who've done this often, you've proven it to yourself that when you apply these techniques, this process, you access this calm, clear, spacious, open place. It's always there. Anger's not always there. You know, jealousy is not always there. Arrogance is not always there. You know, attachment is not always there. Those come and go. But that sky-like nature of mind is always there. Breathe. Back to the breath. Be aware of what your mind is doing. And breathe. Thinking about what we're going to talk about later. I see that as a, just a cloud, a thought that has arisen. Leave it where it is. I'm not going to worry about it. Watch it dissipate. Back to the breath, back to the clarity, back to the limitlessness and spaciousness and openness. It's a relief to be in that space, isn't it? What is the mind doing right now? Keep asking yourself that question. Keep looking at what the mind is doing and then apply the technique. Back to the breath. Use the visualization. Also like slowing down. We often live, our minds work at very rapid speed. Often unnecessarily. to shift, especially your legs maybe, go ahead. Then just settle back into the posture, back into that relaxation, back to the breath, focus on the breath. When the thought has come in, maybe you're thinking about work tomorrow, you're stressed about it. Just recognize that you're thinking about it and leave it where it is. It's like you're just touching it. Ah, there it is. Leave it. Watch it dissipate. It came out of the mind, that thought, and that's where it'll go back, and it'll disappear there. These techniques are ancient. People have been doing them for millennia. That because they work. That's why. They don't need to be proven. You only need to prove it to yourself by trying it, practicing it. Breathe. Okay. So that was 15 minutes of meditation. So those of you who knew that's what 15 minutes of meditation feels like. I thought I had something I wanted to read. No, I can't find it. I wish I could, because I thought it was something good. Give me one more chance to find it here. I think so. Sorry. No. Okay. We can do some questions if anyone has any. Nick, can you put up on the on the chat the website? We also put Nick Solidio is our producer. For those of you who haven't been here before, he's amazing. We're very grateful that we have him. We have a YouTube channel where all these classes are archived. And where do we put, I'm talking about like where we put names of teachers and books and stuff like that. Okay. If you click on the chat function, Nick has put this website, Solidago Productions /meditation, Michael Imperioli, /project /meditation with Michael Imperioli. Solidago is SOLIDAGO Productions.com. Additional readings, teachers can be found there. If anything I'm talking about interests you, in terms of Buddha Dharma, I encourage you to read books by the masters and find you can watch, there's tons of teachings online, archived, teachers that are not alive anymore, teachers that are alive. But if this is of interest to you, do yourself the service of finding a teacher. I mean, this is more like a study group, whether it's me or Victoria, helping other students out, basically. But there are great living masters, male and female, of Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism is, the tradition that we follow, and you can have teachings online. You could become a Buddhist through refuge vows online these days, through Zoom, YouTube. I mean, there's teachings on YouTube. You can do live teachings on Zoom. And now, there are Dharma centers that are opening up all over the world. as COVID restrictions are lifted, and I encourage you to make an effort. I post a lot of teachings on stories, on Instagram, and we have them on this website. So I encourage you to take a look. I identify closest to Buddhism. However, I still don't feel ready to completely close the door on there being a God. Is that okay? Listen, everything's okay. I mean, if you become a Buddhist and take refuge vows, then it's a bit of a different story, because Buddhism is really not a theistic religion, although there are parallels in Buddhism with theistic religions. There's a great teacher named Tsoknyi Rinpoche, Tsoknyi. We should put him on the website there. He's really good. He has some really good books. He's a good teacher. And he said, in Buddhism, Buddhism doesn't really deal with the concept of God, but the nature of God. And think about that. Buddhism doesn't really talk about a conceptual creator God being, omniscient being that created everything, that's a interventionist, or somehow controlling things or not controlling things. But the nature of God that a lot of religions have, which is this big, vast, interconnected kind of Godhead type thing. Some of the Eastern religions talk about Godhead kind of, which is this basically non-dual kind of interconnected oneness of everything. Buddhism does have that aspect. So, I mean, if you do feel close to Buddhism, I encourage you to continue studies, practice, find teachers, and you don't have to close the door on anything. And you don't have to make a decision to formally become a Buddhist until some of those questions maybe are resolved. And maybe they won't be, and maybe this is the place you'll be, and that's okay. You have to do, you have to come to these decisions yourself, Your name is George, who asked that question. If you want me to elaborate, write something else. This is such a big topic. We could do a whole hour on this. But if you have something more specific you want me to address, just write it now. How important is personal retreat to your practice? There are many different types of meditation retreats. There are many different types of Buddhist meditation retreats. There are many different types of Buddhist retreats. But basically, a retreat can be done formally at a Dharma center, with a teacher, with other members of the Sangha. It can be done individually at a Dharma center, maybe cloistered in a little hut or something. It can be done individually on your own, at home or in a cave, or like the yogis of the past and present. But it's basically a period of intensive practice where you're committing a day or several days or several weeks or sometimes several years. Some people go into retreat for life, to intensive practice, and I've always found, I've done various retreats, mostly at Garchen Buddhist Institute with Garchen Rinpoche, and they're real. If you're in the presence of an authentic teacher from an authentic lineage, it's like you do make leaps and bounds in your practice by retreat. You really do. Devoting that time. And some retreats have teachings incorporated. It's not just sitting in meditation for 12 hours a day. There's sometimes liturgical things that are read, or there's teachings, there are different focuses, and I highly encourage you, if you're inspired to do a retreat, to do it, because it'll really, if you're really into this and inspired by practice and teachings, it's just like an intensive, you're just kind of, it's an immersive experience, and you really do, you can make leaps and bounds in your practice and understanding of Dharma and your personal practice and your meditation practice. So I strongly encourage, if you want to do it, to do it. Start small, do a day retreat, half a day or something. I'm trying to teach my children mindfulness and meditation. I did today's 15-minute meditation with my son, who is 3. Thanks for helping him on the path of what could be a lifelong journey. I hope we teach mindfulness and meditation in schools in the future. Yeah, that's a very good to hear. If you think about it, when I was talking before about the mind being the operating system or the cockpit of our existence, basically, to not teach how to work with that is almost kind of ridiculous, isn't it? If we're going to teach anybody anything. Thank you again for these webinars. Every time I'm able to attend, I feel like I come back from them with stronger coping skills for my mental illness. I know it's not a substitute for other treatments, but honestly, it's the most helpful. You're doing a very good thing sharing this with the public for free. I appreciate that. I'm grateful. Do you have any ideas for stress relief techniques for my friend who isn't into meditation? Mental illness, and I always say this, if you are dealing with aspects of, or certain mental illness or whatever it is, some can be more intense, more, critical, more difficult. Some are not as difficult. I'm talking about everything from depression to PTSD to anxiety to trauma, and more chronic things like schizophrenia or bipolar, things like that. We hear, it should be done. You should address that with a professional in the mental health field, first and foremost, because those are difficult things. Sometimes some people need treatment, medication, or talk therapy, whatever it is. So if that's an issue, really, you need to find someone to work with you there. And with them, then maybe see if they recommend meditation. So for some people with mental illness or trauma, histories of abuse and things like that, meditation can often unlock things that have been repressed and hidden, and so it can be tricky. So it should be done in the conjunction with the knowledge of whoever is helping you work on this. I think that's really, really, really important. Stress relief techniques for my friend who's not into meditation. A lot of people came to this class for stress. This class started in the middle of the pandemic, summer of 2020. People were stressed, anxious, all the uncertainty and the difficulty and fear, all those things, which we still have and we always will as a society. So people were curious about meditation to help that, which it can, although when we start working, from a Buddhist point of view, there's a lot bigger of a picture to it. So, anything. Exercise is really good for stress, because doing it daily, because you release endorphins, and it regulates your body chemistry on a daily basis. that can lower the stress hormones and chemistry, like cortisol is one of the kind of stress hormones. And it can release more like the endorphin type things, like dopamine. I'm blanking on the other, non-stress hormone, chemical. So that's important. Exercise, eating well, getting out, going for a walk, being in nature, looking at art. Sometimes when we're really stressed and overwhelmed, our world closes, we can isolate, just stay home or turn off the news. Sometimes watching too much TV can be a problem. Going online, social media, getting off those things, that's just this kind of information stream that kind of stimulates the brain in not always, often not so positive ways. Massage, body work, acupuncture. There's lots, Going back to George's question about God and him not wanting to give up on his belief in God, I guess the way I look at it is this: if God is real and we are wrong, I feel that acting in the Buddhist ways of compassion and kindness would still grant us entry into heaven. That, of course, is if we are wrong. I guess it's just something that kind of swims around in my head sometimes. Yeah, obviously, compassion and kindness and those things are, and certain ethical disciplines are common to most spiritual paths, right? There's not a lot of there's not really, to walk any kind of true, authentic spiritual path, basic ethical practices have to be in place. You can't be some raging, abusive person and expect some kind of progress in any kind of spiritual practice, unless you're willing to give that up and work with it, right? I think maybe instead of thinking that one way is wrong and one way is right, to maybe have a bit of more of an open mind to what could be. What if both ways are right? What if no way is wrong? You know what I mean? What's really the difference between, if we think about this whole thing of non-duality and this ultimate oneness, what's really the difference between that and God? It's just really a conceptual shift, I mean, one thing we know, God is not a person. Whatever religion you're talking about, is not a person, right? It's not somebody who's walking around in this flesh and blood, right? So maybe if you think, I wouldn't be so quick to think in terms of right or wrong. Any suggestions on shorter-term retreat centers near New York City or New York State? Menla Mountain Center, I believe, there's one. Kripalu may have retreats. I'm not sure. It may just be more like holistic life things. Menla, I think Tibet House is associated with Menla Retreat Center, Menla. Garrison Center is in New York, I think in Westchester County, and they have retreats there sometimes, although it's not a Buddhist center. And there's Google. You can, I don't have a lot of suggestions. I'm not saying that to be flippant or anything. What are your thoughts on walking meditation? Do you believe it can be as effective as sitting meditation? No, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I think only really advanced practitioners can make walking meditation be as effective as sitting meditation, because I've said this before, very oftentimes walking meditation will become just going for a walk. Going for a walk can be a very calming thing. I love taking walks, especially in cities. I'm in a city that I don't live in now that's very new to me, and I really love walking through it. You know, there's something about the rhythm of it. I find walking creatively stimulates my creativity, makes me happy, calms me down, gives me focus. But that's not really meditation. There is something called walking meditation, but I think as a substitute for sitting meditation, it's not a good idea unless you're pretty advanced and have a real foundation with sitting meditation. Because it can turn into just going for a walk and being distracted by all the things. You know, when I take a walk, I want to be distracted by, in this city, there's different architecture, and there's different looking people, there's different places that I haven't seen before, and I want to be distracted by those things. I want to notice them. I'm not in meditation, working with my thoughts. I'm just kind of giving myself to being in this space, which is great. If you're new to meditation, really, you know, it's really important to have a strong sitting meditation practice, especially if you want to practice Buddhism. Sometimes I have come across some teachers that I don't know if I agree with their choices in life or interactions with people, but find their words inspiring and helpful. Have you ever entered this dichotomy? And if you have, how do you view this? That's a really good question. I don't agree with a lot of my choices in life yet. The things I'm saying today here, I try to really, I really have faith in and believe in, not because they're mine. I've heard everything I say today, I've heard from people who really know what they're talking about. And I have come across teachers. Now, when you say teacher, you have to be really careful and specific. That's the first part of this question that we have to address, and it's really important. There are many, many, many people teaching Eastern spirituality, meditation, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. I don't know a lot about all things outside of Tibetan Buddhism. It's a tradition that I have chosen to follow, because there are very authentic lineages. By lineage, I mean teacher to student, master to student, unbroken, going back to the time of Buddha. So there's an authenticity and continuity to this lineage that makes it, I can have faith in that and have devotion to it. So let's just focus on that system now, the Tibetan Buddhist, because I can't really speak to others. First off, to find someone who's teaching in one of those authentic lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, or you know, you don't have to be a Tibetan Buddhist to be in this class. Whatever lineage, whatever tradition you're following, make sure that this teacher is connected to a lineage, which means this person or she or they studied with someone and trained with someone who also was trained in this lineage, who comes from, so there's that unbroken continuity. Very important. Really, really, really critical. Then you can have faith that at least the teachings are going to be authentic. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you are encouraged to really, really examine your teacher, a teacher, for quite a long time before you choose to become that person's student. in Tibetan Buddhist traditions, you have someone called a root lama, who is the person you take refuge vows. Refuge vows is really the ceremony to become a Buddhist. Say, you're taking vows saying, I will take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha is the congregation, basically. So you take refuge with a teacher, and that teacher becomes your root lama. That you should really examine, and in some traditions they talk about examining this teacher for several years before you decide to take that commitment as being a student of this teacher. And even still, there may be choices that you see that the teacher you don't agree with, or something bothers you, or something like that. Teachers are human beings. As a human being, we are in samsaric existence and subject to the limitations of this body and limitations of samsaric existence, which means nobody's perfect. Although there are and have been enlightened people who, teachers and practitioners who have reached, realization, very high levels of spiritual attainment. There are some who are on this earth, and they're very rare. And if you find one, dive in. But you may find people who know a lot about Dharma and can teach Dharma really well, yet have a few faults. Often they say in other traditions, listen to the message, not the messenger. As long as the teaching, like you say, you find the words inspiring and helpful. Because you can't really live their life, you can only live your own life. And if the teachings, if they're delivering authentic teachings and delivering them in a way that's really accessible and mind-opening, then it's going to work for you. There may be some choices that you can't stand by and cannot continue. That happens too. I think the mistake is trying to, expect perfection from people, from teachers. We're on a path. Just because you become a Buddhist or take refuge vows, doesn't mean you become Buddha. You're not enlightened. You're working towards that. That may not happen in this life. It may happen in the next. And just because someone is a teacher, even an authentic teacher from an authentic lineage, does not mean they have reached enlightenment yet. They're on the path. So they're still going to have some flaws, but are probably working to the best of their ability with them. Maybe they were earlier in their life or in past lives, much more rough people or difficult people or bad people, I hope that helps, Melissa. It's a really big topic. I want to thank you for this class. Melissa, if you want me to elaborate just right now, because we only have a few minutes left, you can write something if you want me to elaborate on that. I want to thank you for this class and all the resources you've made. I'm new to Buddhism, a couple of years. A couple of years is not so new. It has changed my life, but I live somewhere with limited in-person teachings and resources. Your recommendation of books and online teachings has really kind of become the foundation of my practice, so thank you. It's more meaningful than you know. Well, good for you, Susan, for seeking out these things. Because sometimes people get discouraged and feel, well, I live somewhere, there's no Dharma center, there's no teachings. In Tibet, which is a very vast country, people would travel for months to go get a teaching. And they knew a Lama was going to be doing some practice or some teaching or some kind of empowerment, which I won't go into what that is. It's a certain kind of ritual almost. teaching ritual, liturgical thing sometimes. Months they travel for a day or something to see this teacher, you know. And now we can do it from the, you know, we can have teachings with some of the greatest, you know, spiritual teachers on the planet from the comfort of our home. So I'm glad you're doing that. I am struggling in conversation with my father, who's undergoing cancer treatment, and convinced this is his last chapter. He has been a staunch atheist all my life, and his perspective on death frustrates me. I keep trying to help him connect with a more spiritual perspective, but he is resistant. Any suggestions or guidance on how I can help him? Well, that's a really big topic as well, you know. I mean, what does atheist mean? So, if you think about it, atheist means theo is God, I guess, right? Atheist is not believing in God. Buddhism is a non-theistic religion. Some don't even call it a religion. But atheism is a belief. You're believing that, I guess, what I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, the belief is that we are just kind of these animated, like Victoria calls them meat bags, you know what I mean? Flesh and blood, that have been somehow animated with thought and movement and existence for a limited time, like a tree is somehow, or an animal, or things like that, and that will, when we die, we become, you know, disintegrate back into the earth and things like that, and that's it, as if we had never existed. Which on a physical level, you know, that is true, but we also, as Buddhists, we have mind, which does not die with us, which mind is the continuity that has no beginning and has no end. Mind is where that vast interconnectedness happens and that interdependence happens. What I find interesting is that people I know who are atheists say, but have no problem at all believing in the Big Bang, which, if you think about it, is one of the weirdest concepts and most outrageously fantastic, and I believe in that as well. Buddhist cosmology kind of believes in multiple infinite Big Bangs and disintegrations or disappearances of, because everything's impermanent. Big Bang, expansion, and then disappearance, and then another Big Bang, on, and prior and things, right? But if most atheists believe, no problem believing in the Big Bang, which, if you think about it, so everything in existence in the universe, from the biggest planet and sun and galaxy to, you know, a tiny ant, came from some tiny little spark that blew up into some things, and then all these worlds kind of came out of it and evolved from it, and, you know, now have computers and artificial intelligence, and everything you see in mountains and majesty and skies and comets, and it all came from this nothingness and the tiny spark. So if that's true, if the Big Bang is true, that means, what is that Moby song? We are all made of stars. You know, people have said that before, Moby, but I like that song. I don't know what I'm saying, really, in terms of your question on how this can be guidance or help him, but maybe if you can appeal on that scientific level, yet see the infinity and interdependence and interconnectedness and shunyata, or emptiness, in that, That's his bigger picture, maybe, that he can relate to. He can't relate to, maybe the bigger picture of, rebirth, prior incarnations and things like that. But maybe he can relate to, if the Big Bang is real, then we are all interconnected. Okay, continuing along this scientific point. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So if, as an atheist, he believes that we are basically just matter, mind is a function of, some chemical reactions that happen within this matter, which Buddhists don't believe, by the way. If that's what he believes, matter cannot be created and destroyed, then that material existence is going to go on somehow in this universe, in some form, even in its disintegration, decomposition, basically transforms into other things in forms of matter. In an elemental sense, if the body is cremated, becomes ash, which kind of disintegrates into the atmosphere, which then becomes rain, which becomes water that feeds a tree, or if the body in the earth disintegrates and is fed on by worms and other carrion, and like they do sky burial in Tibet, where they chop up the body on like a mountaintop and let the vultures eat it and animals eat it and stuff like that. But even if you do, so then the matter is becoming other animals. There's a continuity. I mean, that to me could be a very depressing conversation. I'm just saying, like, even trying to explain existence scientifically to me is so mysterious and wondrous and supernatural. And lastly, maybe you can relate to him saying, you as his daughter are his you as his daughter is his continuity. Well, he doesn't maybe believe in heaven, afterlife, rebirth, but you will go on. And what he has given you, even if you have a difficult relationship with your father, he's given you life, his DNA, or he's given you life, or he nurtured you at some time and raised you, formulated some of your mind and thoughts and opinions. You are his continuity, and maybe express your gratitude, and maybe express or ask how you would like, if he has any ideas on how he would like you to continue, how you can honor that, how you can honor his influence and his generosity of giving you life in your life for the rest of your life. Maybe make a connection to that. I don't know. It's so hard. But I wish you the best with that. Last, I know it's late. I'm curious, thoughts on Alan Watts. I don't know much about Alan Watts, but I've heard good things. It's really vague and silly, but that's all I know. I think there's good stuff with Alan Watts, from kind of a Buddhism meets science perspective, which there's lots of those dialogues that are very interesting. Going back to the teacher and not agreeing with some of the teacher's choice, Melissa is continuing. That makes a lot of sense. I completely understand when choosing a root teacher. I think my conflict occurs when I come across certain literature that speaks to me, and then I read on the teacher and I don't know if I agree with their life choices or interactions with students, and then I feel conflicted. But yes, that's what you said about being human. But remember, if they're an authentic teacher teaching with an authentic lineage, they're teaching the Dharma. Someone made a comment saying, well, Buddhism is patriarchal. Well, there are systems and cultural institutions, because of the cultural history and the way things evolved in their societies, that were patriarchal, but the teachings are not patriarchal. And especially in America, where I live, in Dharma centers I go, mostly women who are at these centers, you know. The teachings and practice has nothing to do with gender or things like that. If the literature speaks to you, it is only speaking to you because that person is teaching the Dharma, which is the Buddha. It's the teachings of Buddha. And Buddha taught, 2,500 years ago. Why we still study Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, is because they are the truth. They work. They're effective. Many people have attained enlightenment since the Buddha taught, because of the teachings, by practicing the teachings and integrating them into their life. And many people are on the path to that, and many people have gained a lot of wisdom because they're authentic and they're real. So, yeah, examine, focus on the message, not the messenger. Focus on the teachings, not the teacher. And if things get too, heavy or disturbing, maybe, it's not for you, Good to examine for a long time before you dive in and make that real strong connection as a root teacher. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Nick Solidago. Nick is our producer, and he does this out of just generosity, for you. So we're grateful to him. Let's dedicate the merit from today's class for the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Good to be back with you all. See you next week.